Government leaders around the world are getting bullish on crypto. And the next one is the Prince of Serbia. The Prince of Serbia talked very positively about Bitcoin. But I don't agree with everything that he's saying in this 1-minute clip. But let's go ahead and watch this first.
You know that many people in power think that Bitcoin is a scam. Does it come down to power? And is it have similarities and echoes in de-dollarization that is accompanying the war in Ukraine? There is a change of power in the world, and it's taking the form of how we pay for things.
Well, it's a good point. And firstly, it's understandable that the Bitcoin is going to be labeled as a scam, and this is the negativity that gets associated with something that's different, something that brings a better future. And those in power now are obviously going to do everything they can to try and stop this, because it will take power away from their hands. And this is finally we have discovered the ability to actually decentralize our monetary system. And that is thanks to Bitcoin.
I'm not sure El Salvador is necessarily a good example, given that recent volatility in Bitcoin prices has affected their economy in quite different ways. But
give it another couple of years, and you'll notice that the price of Bitcoin will go up, and El Salvador will be claimed as a winner. But then look at what's happening in El Salvador right now. They're paying back their loans. Their credit rating is now being revised upwards. And they are now, thanks to the president Bukele, they have gotten rid of all the gang members, and now it's one of the safest countries in the whole of Latin America, in the Americas. So safer than America. I mean, that's for sure.
Now, he's obviously a Bitcoin bull, and I'm a Bitcoin bull as well. But there are two things that I mentioned over here that we can't just trust, we have to verify. Is El Salvador really that safe? Is it safer than the US? And more importantly, is the credit rating of El Salvador improving as a consequence of buying Bitcoin? Let's have a look at the data. Now, it's very hard to compare crime rates across countries because there are also different laws, right? But Wikipedia has an article list of countries by intentional homicide rate. And in here, El Salvador is at rank 54. The US, though, is at rank 187. Now, I'm not sure how much this has to do with Bitcoin, probably more something to do with the gun laws in the US. The US is pretty unique in that regard, and it seems to be a development that's pretty independent from Bitcoin itself. Economic prosperity in general is great for reducing any kind of crime. In other words, when there is economic hardship, crime tends to rise. But right now, El Salvador yet has to reap the rewards from the Bitcoin bet. And we can see this also in the historical credit rating of El Salvador. Is the credit rating really improving? Let's look at this agency by agency. Let's start with Standard & Poor's, B- with a stable outlook in December of 2018, then B- with a negative outlook in October of 2021, CCC Plus with a negative outlook in June of 2022. So this is worsening. Then we even had a selective default in May of this year, and then one day afterwards, CCC Plus with a stable outlook. So overall, a deterioration of the credit outlook. The only thing one could see as positive is here. It went from CCC Plus negative to CCC Plus stable in the last 12 months, but in there was a selective default. Let's look at Moody's. B3 stable outlook 2018. B3 negative outlook February 2021. Another reduction, CAA1 in July of 2021. And it got worse, CAA3 in May of 2022. And now again, a slight improvement. It's a stable outlook in February of this year. But overall, since purchasing Bitcoin, El Salvador's credit rating did not improve. Let's also have a look at Fitch. B- stable, October 2017. B- negative, April 2020. CCC in February of 2022. So that's worse. CC in September September of 2022, which is worse than CCC. So overall, it's a pretty hard stretch to say that El Salvador improved their credit rating with purchasing Bitcoin. Rather, the opposite is the case if you don't just cherry pick the last few points. And this is intuitive. This is to be expected, even for a company. It's the reason why we don't see a lot of companies and countries buying Bitcoin. It's worsening of their credit rating. Here is how this works. If you buy Bitcoin and put this massively on your balance sheet, you increase the volatility of your cash flows or of your assets. By increasing the volatility, equity holders are very happy about this because they get the potential upside of that volatility if things play out well. Bondholders, on the other hand, have zero upside from this. Bondholders get their fixed coupon payment every quarter or whatever the bond says. If you introduce more volatility to this, it only reduces the probability of the coupon payment being made. So bondholders want companies to take as little risk as possible. And this is true for companies, it's also true for countries. In other words, by El Salvador purchasing that much Bitcoin, the likelihood of coupon payments being made reduces because at least temporarily Bitcoin could crash, right? The credit rating goes down, the potential borrowing costs go up, which then in the end directly leads to taxpayers having to pay more. If El Salvador has to get new bonds on the market, they have to pay more for that bond. They have to pay a higher coupon payment. And coupon payments are made by the taxpayer. So I'm not saying that El Salvador made a bad move here. I am long-term very bullish on Bitcoin as well. And I think long-term this will play out well for El Salvador. And I believe the same is true for MicroStrategy, for example. But right now, we are not yet receiving the fruits of taking that risk. It is basically taking on pain today in order to reap the rewards over the long term. Purchasing Bitcoin right now is introduction of more volatility in anybody's balance sheet, and you have to stomach the volatility to reap the rewards. And we simply have to be realistic about this. We can't just shill Bitcoin and say everything is great, nothing could go wrong. That's not the way to look at this. The main purpose of this YouTube channel is to be objective and to even question the people that hype the asset that we are bullish on. It's very important to avoid confirmation bias, to keep level-headed. And just because somebody says Bitcoin will help the creditworthiness of anyone, that might actually be not the case. If you're looking for a level-headed community and you have Telegram, feel free to join us. Simply search for Bitcoin Strategy Channel within the Telegram app or click the link down below. I hang around in this chat regularly, looking forward to chatting with you. Bye bye.